My work has been driven by my desire to figure out how we can provide an equitable and empowering education for each and every child. The process requires solving a set of puzzles about how children learn, about how they can best be taught, how we can prepare teachers to engage in this kind of teaching, which is much more complex than most people realize, and how we can create the systems and the policies that will both enable all teachers access to this kind of preparation and provide all students access to well-prepared teachers who are working in schools that are organized for teacher and student success. I've tried to tackle these puzzles through my research and through collaborations with many other researchers, educators, and policymakers to diagnose the problems, raise up the issues, and create new policies and systems.
Linda, I think, has been the voice in this country for decades now about the importance of teacher preparation and a constant reminder to all of us that teaching is a complex act that is both art and science, and it is hard to do well. As really our society has more and more relied on schools to be the answer, the solution to so many societal issues, the work of being a teacher has become increasingly complex, and at times it feels like it's not even doable.
I was fortunate to be able to study some extraordinary teacher education programs before I came to Stanford, where I was asked to help redesign the program. So we redesigned the Stanford Teacher Education Program with my colleague Rachel Lotan and the professors who were there, so that it could really focus on development and learning in the ways that would empower the teachers to be much more effective in the classroom.
The teacher education program at Stanford is the model for how we could do teacher education in this country. Teachers who come in fully prepared are empowered. They are able to create a vision for what they want to see happen in their classroom, and then they are able to work with other adults to create a vision sort of beyond the classroom to encompass the entire school and the entire community.
One of the powerful aspects of being in the Stanford Teacher Education Program is that not only were we learning theory from the people who wrote it, but we were also taking that theory and putting it into action. And so it wasn't just research that would sit on a shelf. My classroom today I've modeled it around the principles that I learned from Linda. My students have different opportunities to show me that they understand the content that I'm teaching them.
Linda is driven by a passion for children, teachers, leaders, and schools. At the heart of who she is and what she does is her need to ensure that our schools are places that children can learn, grow, and thrive, and that teachers, leaders, and systems that are in place have what they need to do that in deeply equitable ways.
And with scholars like Pam Cantor, we've tried to translate what we know from the science of learning and development into design principles that many schools are now using to transform their practices. These are typically schools that are designed for teacher and student success. The schools provide really rich learning opportunities, often project-based learning that supports inquiry and deep learning. They teach social, emotional, and cognitive skills, habits, and mindsets very explicitly, including, very importantly, a growth mindset that enables students to experience success. And then they have a variety of student supports that remove obstacles to learning for students who may have experienced trauma, who may have special needs at any moment in time. And to do this kind of work at scale, you need systems and policies.
What Linda brings is that depth of and that expertise in research alongside her unique focus on equity and her unique focus on anchoring systems change in the lived experiences of our students and their educators. And she brings this strategy and this perspective of how to weave that together with policy change, right? And that is the depth of her experience here in Washington, understanding how systems work and being able to be that translator between promoting and building those systems and connecting it to the knowledge base in a way that supports the lived experiences of our students.
Linda has the talent to move back and forth between very local issues, very immediate issues of how do you evaluate the work of a teacher? How do you ensure that the best and the brightest are in our local classrooms, wherever local is, and the highest levels of policy creation and critique?
People very often just stay where they feel their expertise is greatest, and knowledge remains siloed. But that is not the way she thinks. She knows that this knowledge not only can't be siloed, it has to be used, and it has to be used for the largest number of kids possible. So it's about scale, and scale is about policy. And Linda is a policy expert, and policymakers know that, and they trust her.
And I've learned how important it is that education policy is informed by the science regarding how people learn, by rigorous high-quality evidence that shows us what works and what doesn't, and why. And there's a big divide between policy and research in many countries, certainly in the United States. So you need a way to really carry the knowledge base into the policy conversation. The Learning Policy Institute was actually founded to help carry what we know about learning and teaching directly into policy so that we can create the supportive systems that will reach every child, not just the lucky ones who happen to be in an extraordinary school that sort of lives on the margins of the system.
Most of the issues that we face as teacher educators, as education researchers in the world, they're common, they're enduring, they're connected. There are lots of things that we need to think about together, and we can't go back to education and teaching as it used to be. So now more than ever, that sharing, collaboration, and learning from each other is essential. Linda's work elevated the international sort of collaboration and learning to a policy level and to a ministry level. As I know in Singapore, for instance, the ministry has in the past, invited Linda to advise them because they understand that her vision of education is not isolated to a particular context, but is generative, it's context permeable. So that there are big ideas around excellent teaching, schools, education reform, policy that can be adopted and adapted in multiple places around the world.
LPI developed the Ed Prep Lab in collaboration with leading educator preparation programs to connect research, practice, and policy in the cause of dramatically improving the opportunities for educator learning that can nurture student learning.
We also seek to transform the educator preparation field by capturing the processes of learning and change, as well as the exemplary practices and disseminating them widely.
The Yidan Prize will allow us to expand the number of programs and the reach of the Ed Prep Lab, to develop new tools for sharing knowledge and practice, to follow graduates of these programs into the field to see how they can implement what they've learned, and then iterate on how to improve their learning opportunities. At the end of the day, teaching is the profession on which all other professions depend, and our investments in teachers' knowledge and skills are investments in our children and in our collective future.